What's today? Monday? Happy Monday. My name is Jamesia, aka James IA. I'm your motivational holistic health coach, and I'm just a vessel to provide you with the necessary tools to make sure that your mind operates in a state of consciousness, your spirit stays lit, and your body is snatched to the gods in every way you wish. Before we bankhead bounce into the video, shout out to ATL. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe by clicking the link below. And if you're feeling real spicy like at any point of this video, make sure you drop a comment or two. Welcome, y'all. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. I hope that you are enjoying yourselves. Y'all are having a wonderful day. So today, as the title states, we're going to focus on the solar plexus chakra. You can conquer fear. You can conquer fear, y'all. I want to specifically talk about fear today is because we live in a society that keeps us in a perpetual state of fear. And if you are one of those people who are constantly watching the news, that is a way to reprogram or to program your mind in believing that all of this negativity out in this world is happening, and which, not to say that it's not happening, but this is a way to keep you in a limiting state of fear. And I want to talk about first I want to talk about what does fear, a long-term state of fear, do to the body. A long-term state of fear actually weakens your immune system. You can have gastrointestinal problems such as ulcers or irritable bowel syndrome. When you're in a state of fear, a long-term state of fear, you can also experience issues such as aging. So it can accelerate your aging process. You can experience a decreased fertility, a decreased state of fertility. And depending on how severe it is, you can actually lead yourself into a premature death. And so the reason why I'm talking about this is because I want us to see the bigger picture. Hey KK, shout out to my niece KK. Hey girl. I want us to see the bigger picture of what's going on in the world around us and why they keep pushing fear onto us. And this is so that it can keep us in a state of disempowerment. So we want to make sure that we take our power and our empowerment into our own hands. Because I believe in sovereignty, and I believe that we can be sovereign within ourselves. In order for us to do that, we have to master ourselves. We have to self-develop. We have to work on ourselves every single day so that we can become stronger in our spirit, our mind, our body, and our emotions. And so that we can make the best decisions for ourselves. Let's think about it. When the whole vaccine and COVID-19 and all of that stuff came out, and people were getting it left and right. And a lot of the times you would hear about the immune system being impacted. So when all of this happened, the pandemic happened, and we were in this state of fear, most of the world at some point in time, and we've been in this pandemic for what, 2 years now? So if we're in this state of fear, then that means we're not seeing clearly to make the best decisions for ourselves. And that means that we're weakening our immune system, which makes us more susceptible to incidents that, a lot of diseases or what we were dealing with during the pandemic happened to so many people. Is because of this state of fear. So moving on, the fear can impact us in so many ways, and specifically when it comes to the body, it can impact your kidneys and your heart. Okay, so when you're in a long state of fear, kidneys and your heart are going to be impacted. So now the solar plexus is impacted by fear, but also the root chakra, but we're going to focus on the solar plexus today. Okay, so I want to start with this African proverb. It states, "The brave man is not he who is not afraid of fear, but he who conquers that fear." So that is the African proverb for today. So I want to do something different today, y'all. I want to share a story about fear. It's this story that I found and I just thought it was so fitting for today. And it's a Ethiopian folklore. And I just think it's just a wonderful story about conquering your fear. So, this is how the story goes. Y'all ready for story time? All right. So, there was this Ethiopian boy, right? He was so shy and fearful of everything around him and everything in the world. He was so afraid of just everything that his family called him Miobe. And one day, Miobe asked his grandfather, he said, "Why do you call me that?" His grandfather responded, "Because you are afraid." And his other family members chimed in and agreed with the grandfather as they laughed at him. Excuse me. And as this all was happening, Miobe began to reflect on why he's being called the feared one. So Miobe translates into the frightened one, excuse me. So he's like, okay, they call me the frightened one. So he decided that night that he would pack his sack and go on a quest to conquer fear, to figure out what he was afraid of and to conquer it. And so that night he left and he slept underneath the sky. And before he went to sleep, he whispered to himself, "I see you and I will conquer you, fear." That's what he said. So he went to sleep, and Miobe was awakened by howling noise from wolves in the wilderness. So he woke up, and of course, he was afraid. Now, he could have ran back to his village where he was from, but he said to himself, "I will conquer you, fear." So he got up and he started walking towards the face of fear. He continued to walk and he saw nothing, and he was walking and walking, and the sun began to arise. And as the sun was coming up, he began to smile and he was happy because he said to himself, "I am becoming brave." And so he continued to walk, and shortly after he came up on this village. And from afar, he saw the village, and immediately fear started to creep into his mind. He said, I don't know these people. What if they're unkind to me? So he was in this state of fear, but then he brushed it off and he straightened up and he said to himself, "I will conquer you, fear." So he began to walk towards the village, y'all. Miobe walked towards the village, and he walked up on a group of elders. As they were speaking amongst themselves, they looked up and they asked him, "Who are you?" And he said, "I am traveling the world to become brave." And one of the elders, as they laughed at him, one of the elders looked at him and said, "Fool, no one can become brave. No one can conquer bravery where it does not exist." And I could be paraphrasing that, but no one can become brave where it does not exist. So Miobe looked and said, "Well, what do you mean?" And one of the elders said, "Our village is being threatened by a monster on top of the mountain." And he was just like, okay. And another elder said, "Look, there he is." So Miobe looked and he didn't see anything. So then another elder pointed out, "There he is." And they said that he has a head of a crocodile, a monstrous crocodile at that. And then someone else pointed out, and he has a body as horrible as a hippopotamus, a gigantic hippopotamus. And someone else cried out or mentioned or yelled out, and it's like a dragon. He has fire coming from his snout. And so Miobe looked up and he said, oh, he saw the monster. And he was just like, he saw it, and he was like, "I see." And Miobe decided, he said, well, I'm going to be the person to conquer this monster. So he said out loud to the village people, "I will slay this monster." And immediately everyone started to freak out. So the village people said, no, don't do it, son, don't do it. And Miobe started to walk away from the village, going toward the monster. And the mothers began to create a shield around him to keep him from going. The men began to shake their heads, and one of the village people said and warned him, you will die. And as soon as they uttered those words to Miobe, Miobe began to become extremely afraid. He began to shiver, his heart began to flutter, and he's just like, oh man, but I must conquer this monster. So he said to himself, I will conquer you, fear. So as he was walking towards the mountain, y'all, the village people began to just express how fearful they are of this monster, how big this monster was. It was to the point where the monster had them in such a fearful state that the children were not going to school because they were afraid that the monster would eat the children. The farmers were not working and tending to the land and the animals because they were afraid that the monster would eat them. Some people abandoned their homes because they were afraid that the monster would eat them. So as they were going, and as he was walking towards the mountain and hearing these stories of how big and don't do it and don't go, Miobe decided that I am going to slay this monster, so there's nothing that you can do to stop me. So he walks to the mountain, and he gets to the base of the mountain. He looks up and he sees that the monster is even bigger and more fiery. And so he took a deep breath and he decided to start climbing up the mountain, y'all. And as he was climbing up the mountain, something interesting started to happen. Miobe was climbing the mountain, but as he was climbing, the monster became smaller. And so it got to a point where he thought his eyes were deceiving him. He thought that he was tripping. Because he's like, hold up. Why am every time that I'm getting closer to this monster, the smaller it gets? So he just continues to climb. He gets halfway there and he looks up and he doesn't see anything. So he continues to climb the mountain. And so now at this point, he pulls out his dagger and he comes around this bend on the path, the bend of path, or this path that had like a bend in it. And he has his dagger and he's looking. He looks to the right, he looks to the left, he looks behind him, he holds his breath, and to his surprise, nothing. He doesn't see anything. He's like, okay, this is odd. So he was just ready, waiting for a monster to attack him. He gasped and nothing happened. So from afar, he saw where the monster stayed, so he continued to climb the mountain, So finally, y'all, he gets to the top of the mountain where the monster lives. And again, nothing. He looks to the right, looks to the left, he doesn't see anything. But then he hears a sound shortly after, and he looks down, y'all. So he looks down, and he sees this wrinkled-looking creature, a toad-like creature with round, frightened eyes. So he bends down, he bent down and picked up the toad-like monster creature. And he asked the monster, who are you? And the monster said nothing, y'all. The monster said nothing. So he just took it, put it in his hand, and walked. He went back down the mountain and walked back towards the village. So he gets to the village, and everyone is screaming in joy and crying, and crying out, he's safe, he's safe. So he held out his hand, and he showed them and told them, I brought the monster. And one of the elders from the village came up to Miobe, and he asked the monster, who are you? And the monster replied with a croak. So then the elder makes an announcement to the village people. He said, Miobe brought us the monster. its name is fear. And that is the end of the story, y'all. The moral of that story, and there's so much to unpack in this story, but the moral of the story is that Miobe conquered his fear. And I thought this was such a powerful story, y'all. When I was reading and I was getting excited, I was just like, this is such a powerful story. Because this can be applied in our lives in so many ways, y'all. When I tell you, just think about this story. Miobe was he was born into a family. And in this family, they told him that he was fearful. He was frightened one. His name translated into the frightened one. And one day he questioned himself, what exactly am I afraid of? And so he took it upon himself to challenge himself and face his fear by walking towards it, y'all. There has to be something in our lives that we are fearful of and we are afraid to walk towards. Not only did Miobe go on a journey and a quest, but he went against all the naysayers and everyone that told him that he was fearful. He told himself that he will conquer his fear, to the point where Miobe went by himself in the wilderness. He heard the wolves, but guess what? He said, I'm gonna walk towards the sound, and he saw nothing. So sometimes we can tell ourselves that if I do this thing, it's going to be bad. But he kept proving to himself that if I overcome my fear, I will win. And that's exactly what Miobe did. He started to become confident within himself. He started to strengthen his willpower. He began to believe in himself, his self-esteem, and his courage. And guess what? Fear kept coming up. I want us to know that fear is always going to come up in our lives, but it's up to us to face our fears. And when Miobe got to the village people, now this part was so profound to me, y'all. These people lived in such a state of fear that even the elders told them that you cannot conquer bravery where it does not exist. In their mind, they believed that because this monster up on the mountain was keeping them from moving forward, for keeping them to having a thriving civilization, a thriving community, that no one can conquer this monster because nobody did it before. But guess what? Miobe challenged them. They laughed at him. They told him, you fool. You cannot conquer bravery where it does not exist. So because that they were in a state of fear, they believed that anyone that came to that vicinity had to be in a state of fear because nobody was going to conquer that monster. And so this can be applied to your life. You can be in such an environment where you want to go after your dreams. You want to take that step. You want to go to school. You want to leave that situation. You want to move forward. But the environment that you're in is telling you that you cannot do it because they're afraid. So they believe that you can't do it because they can't do it. But guess what? Nobody is stepping out of that fear. Nobody is breaking the chains of fear, and nobody is challenging themselves to go above and rise above the fear that they're experiencing. But guess what? Miobe did that. Miobe said, you know what? Y'all can live in a state of fear, but I'm going to face my fear because I have to conquer this, because I have something to prove to myself. And that's exactly what he did, y'all. And this story is so profound because as he began to climb the mountain and go through the rough times, he was walking towards the mountain. People were trying to throw the fear on him and tell him this monster is big. They're trying to put him in a state of fear. He stood in the face of death and said, I am willing to die to face my fear. One of the village people said that you will die. And he said, well, guess what? If I die, and this is how I interpreted the story, if I die, at least I died saying that I faced my fear. At least I died saying that I went towards something and did something I never thought I could do in the face of fear. And at least I stepped out of my comfort zone and tried it. And if it failed, then guess what? You can tell my story that at least they did not live in a fearful state before they left this earth. And so Miobe, guess what he did, y'all? It takes one person. It takes one person to step out on faith to change the trajectory of the people in your environment, the people in your family, the people you surround yourself with, everything. It takes only one person, y'all, because guess what? When he conquered his fear by seeing that little toad, picking it up and coming back down, guess what happens now? Everyone benefits from that person that takes a step out on faith. Everyone. So when it's like when you heal, y'all, when you heal yourself, you heal those around you. When you conquer your fears, you conquer the fears of those around you. So now that village is able to thrive in a way that they never thought they could thrive in. Now, the children can go back to school and get an education. The farmers can go back to work and tend to the land to grow the crops so that they can thrive and eat, and so that they can tend to the animals. The people who abandoned their homes can go back to the homes and live in peace again. That village is able to thrive and live in a state of peace because it took one person to conquer the limiting beliefs that they thought that could never happen, y'all. And so I want you to look at yourself in your life, where you are keeping yourself in fear, y'all. Where is it? I want you to challenge yourself. What area in your life are you keeping yourself in this bondage of fear? And how can you challenge yourself? I want to implore you to challenge that fear, to look in the face of fear and to walk towards it and walk through it. Just like Miobe in the story, he had to challenge himself. And he had to conquer his fear, y'all. And guess what? He did it. He said that I will conquer my fear. I don't care if I grew up in a family like this and they told me that I am this person. Well, guess what? That's what you say about me, but that's not what I say about me. You say that I'm a frightened one, but I don't believe that I am. And guess what? I'm going to prove to myself that I'm not. And he did. He came up on a village of people and they said, you cannot conquer bravery where it does not exist. And he said, you cannot conquer bravery where it does not exist in your world, but I will conquer bravery and it exists in my world. Miobe, this story was so profound for me, y'all, and I just wanted to share it with y'all in hopes that this inspires you to step out on faith, to do something different, to just thrive, and to give yourself permission to experience something different, because guess what? On the other side of fear is peace. On the other side of fear is accomplishment. On the other side of fear is growth. On the other side of fear is a newer version of yourself that you never thought you could have been. That is what's on the other side of fear. And I want to implore you to be like Miobe. Let's do as Miobe did. Miobe stood up within himself and said, I can no longer live like this. I'm going to go out into the world and see what exactly it is that I'm afraid of. I'm going to conquer it. So guess what? He started to strengthen his solar plexus. He started to come into harmony with his solar plexus. And he started to operate in a place of confidence and willpower and courage and self-esteem. So in what area in your life do we need to break out of? If you're watching the news all day, every day, I implore you to only watch it a few times a week, a couple times a week. Break it down. Don't watch it every day, because we know now that it's to keep you in a state of fear. What is it? Do you want to start that channel? Do you want to start that book? Do you want to travel the world? What exactly it is that you want to do? Choose today to change your life and surprise yourself. It only takes one day at a time, y'all. Take baby steps. It doesn't matter how long it takes. Time doesn't exist. It's an illusion. We create. We are the creators. We are the creators of our universe, and we're the creators of our life. So we have the power to create exactly what it is that we want in this lifetime. But we have to believe in ourselves. We have to believe that we can do it. Because I believe that you can do it. I believe that I can do it. There are things that I had to step out of on faith of. In the face of fear, y'all. In the face of fear. And I want to implore you to do the same thing. So that is my message for today, y'all. I was super excited about this message. And there's this affirmation that I want to share with you. It's I act with courage and confidence. That is the affirmation of the day. I act with courage and confidence. So for you to strengthen your solar plexus, you have to act. You have to move. You have to believe. You have to have the will within you to know that you can accomplish whatever it is that you want to accomplish. So I act with courage and confidence. And I want you to say that over and over again when you come up in the face of fear. I act with courage and confidence. I want you to be like Miobe. You can state his mantra. I will conquer you, fear. I want you to give fear a name. Now, I call fear, if fear comes up to me and if fear arises in me, I call fear Rihanna. Because guess what, y'all? We will always come into the face of fear. And so my nickname for the fear that I experience in life is Furiana. So I gotta put Furiana in check. I gotta put her in place because she not stopping my show over here. Now she will creep up on you, and when I tell you sis is strong. Sis is strong, okay? And so I know that we all deal with fear. So I want you to name your fear. I want you to tell your fear. I want you to put your fear in place anytime it comes up, and I want you to tell your fear, I will conquer you, fear. I will conquer you because you will conquer fear. So that is all that I have for you all, community. I was in the vibe today. I was in the flow, and I just really wanted to share this message with y'all because somebody needed to hear this. I know that I needed to hear at one point in time. I know when I go back to watch this or any point in life I can go back and watch this video because I'm going to need it at one point in time. And so I do pray that this video bless you in some type of way as much as it blessed me by sharing it with you. So yeah, with that being said, that is all that I have for you, community. I hope that you choose to have a great day and a great rest of the week. TTYL.